I just want to say, On-Ramps has been a part of my life since I moved here to this amazing city a little under 3 years ago. And I look around this room and I see a lot of faces that are very familiar to me, faces that have become places of friendship and trust, and people who've prayed for me. I also see a lot of new faces, which is beautiful, and I just want to say it's a privilege, it's an honor to be here with you tonight. And, hello. We're going to figure that out, don't worry. And it's no matter who you are, we cannot acknowledge that we come tonight from all kinds of different places. We come maybe hopeful for the future. Some of us come scared. Some of us come frustrated. No matter what, no matter where we come from, no matter that place, we unite ourselves tonight as one people who are faced towards one person, to Jesus, the one who is the King of our hearts. I just want to invite you to be free tonight, to take whatever posture is helpful. Worship means to prostrate yourself on the ground. That was the way that the people of Israel approached the temple when they were worshiping. And I'm not saying that you need to do that tonight, that's fine. But if your children need to get up and run around, if you need to be on your knees, if you need to sit down, that is fine. But I invite those of you who want to join me and stand this evening as we sing our need for the Lord. Sing, Lord, I come. Lord, I come. I confess. Now in here, I find my rest. Without you, I fall apart. 'Cause you're the one that guides my heart. Lord, I need you. Lord, I need you. Oh, I He's in a state of peace or war. God is good. He deserves our praise. He deserves our acknowledgement that He is the one who is great. Let us sing acknowledging that greatness. He's the one who puts breath in our lungs. He's the one who gives us life. world is working the way it's supposed to be, God is still great. We worship you now, Lord, the one who creates us, the one who fills our lungs with breath. Thank you. Praise you. So this next song we're going to sing in probably what is my heart language, which is the Spanish language. But don't worry, if you don't speak Spanish, the words are very simple, and there's translation for you as well. So the English is in parentheses for you, but we will be singing together in Spanish. And the words are very simple. No hay nadie como tú, which means there is no one like you. Precioso y glorioso, precious, glorious, tan bello, tan hermoso, so lovely, so beautiful, Jesus, Jesus, the one in whom we live and move. So it goes like this. No hay nadie como tú, no hay nadie como tú, precioso y glorioso, tan bello y tan hermoso. No hay nadie como tú. Precioso y glorioso, tan bello y tan hermoso, Jesús, Jesús, Jesús. So no hay nadie como tú, no hay nadie como tú. Precioso y glorioso, tan bello y tan hermoso, no hay nadie como tú, no hay nadie como tú. Precioso y glorioso, tan bello y tan hermoso, Jesús, quiero más, quiero más, yo quiero más, yo quiero más y más de ti, Señor. Yo quiero más, yo quiero más, yo quiero más y más de ti, Señor. Yo quiero más, yo quiero más, yo quiero más y más de ti, Señor. Yo quiero más, yo quiero más, yo quiero más y más de ti, Señor. Jesús.
So my name is Jessica. I am very glad to be with you all tonight. I want to say, I think before I start that I'm really, really thankful that in this room there's a tangible sense of life. There's a tangible sense of joy. There's a tangible sense of love in between, love amongst one another, and I'm really, really thankful for that. I think Carl and Kylan both did a great job acknowledging that we may be coming into tonight from many, many different places. We may be coming in tonight with many different emotions, and that's why we're here together. That is the reason that we gather. That's the reason that we do life together as the body of Christ. So I'm very thankful to be with you all tonight. Eric is going to help me out real quick. This is my husband. Look at him. He's so cute. He's been around. Okay, so Eric is going to pass out thank you, and thanks to you. Right? So he's going to pass out some cards. I'm going to ask that you fill out these cards in the next few minutes that we have here. I neglected to give pens to everybody. If you have a mom beside you, she probably has pens. So if you have a grandma beside you, she might have candy in her purse also, so you can ask for that. So the cards are going out. Thank you.
Just grab one and pass it down. I'll put them back actually.
And as the cards go out, I want to acknowledge something. I want to acknowledge, the card says, this week I'm feeling whatever way that you are feeling. We are coming into this space with very different emotions, different things that are swirling inside of us. For me, this has been a really heavy week for lots of different reasons. So I want to acknowledge, take some time to say that it's fine. Wherever you're coming in, whatever your entry is, it's fine. I'm going to ask, as you get these cards filled out, if you can pass them to the very ends of the rows over here, and then Eric will collect those in a few minutes. But for now, as you're thinking, as you're writing, I want to read to us from Luke. And we've heard this before. No good tree bears bad fruit, nor again does a bad tree bear good fruit. For each tree is known by its own fruit. Figs are not gathered from thorn bushes, nor are grapes picked from a bramble bush. The good person out of the good treasure of his heart produces good, and the evil person out of his evil treasure produces evil. For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Same message, different translation. You don't get wormy apples off a healthy tree, nor good apples off a diseased tree. The health of the apple tells the health of the tree. You must begin with your own life-giving lives. It's who you are, not what you say and do, that counts. Your true being brims over into words and deeds. And as you have the cards in front of you, I want to have you keep something in your head that tonight is about naming some things and releasing them. So naming some things that are maybe in the room, that are in your life, that are in your heart, and then maybe doing some releasing of them as well. So I want to take a moment and celebrate what we just did. We just participated in this beautiful ancient ritual of communion together as a community. The first Christians celebrating communion together were doing this sometimes in caves, sometimes under cover of darkness, away from the eyes of the empire who would have been threatened by having too many different voices, different ethnicities, different classes at one table, taking communion together. The Roman Empire was this ever-present reality watching over the brand new Christian community. Uncomfortable with the fact that they followed and worshipped a man that they called the Son of God, when Augustus Caesar was already labeled a Son of God. Communion is a beautiful thing, and we've been doing it for centuries. But it's also powerful, and it's also dangerous. I loved hearing CJ lead communion because he got to participate in this centuries-long act that people have been doing and ways that we've been celebrating Christ. And so the hope of communion is that it's an act that reconciles us to one another on a regular basis. At Honors, we do communion monthly, but we are reconciled to one another monthly and weekly and daily, hourly, by the minute, as we fall short of loving one another the right way, the way that Jesus would have us love one another in the kingdom of God and God's preferred future. And so we're coming into this worship gathering after one of the most divisive, damaging, and painful election seasons. Let's be real, it's what it is. Because it's in my heart, so I can't ignore it. Some would say this has been the most painful of all election seasons. I've heard it said that this is the first election fully captured on social media, and that means there's been divisive rhetoric and chaos not just in our physical surroundings and in person, but in our digital spaces and our digital communication as well, and so it's been very pervasive. We're coming into this worship gathering, and we've just now left the communion table, knowing full well that our world and our nation and our city are very broken right now. We're in a time when unity and reconciliation look really far off. And yet, in the midst of that, we do communion. We are blessed by the children who got to lead us in this act, this thing we've been doing for centuries. And that witnesses, I think, to our ability to practice unity and reconciliation in some of the most divisive times. Communion, authentic communion, is a good fruit that comes from a good tree. And hopefully it's a symptom, it's a fruit then of what our hearts are full of. So we find ourselves done with this political season, but I have some news. The church is actually not done being political.
Amen.
And this is not a cause for anxiety, it's not a cause for despair, this is a cause for hope.
Yes.
Here's why. Politics, from the Greek polis, it just means of and for and relating to citizens. Politics is a process of figuring out how people do life together, how citizens are resourced and organized. As a church, we're citizens of God's kingdom.
Yes.
It transcends our citizenship as Americans or any other nation. And I would argue it takes our ultimate allegiance as well. So the question for this church in this time, a time of division, a time of fear, a time of pain, is how are our kingdom citizens going to be resourced and organized? How are we going to do life together? Like in this room, in this body of Christ, not the whole world out there, but us. How are we going to do life together? If you haven't yet, go ahead and pass your cards out to the aisles, and I think Clarence and Eric may be picking those up. And then I'm going to ask for another thing, is that Clarence and Eric, and whoever may hold the cards at this point, is that you go ahead and pass them back out, and now they'll come to new people.
Teacher.
Thank you. So the cards are coming back out, and you will now get a chance to see what people are feeling. How have people's weeks been? I only know what's in my heart. And honestly, I've been off social media because it's too much for me right now. So I really only know what's in my heart. I only know how I've been feeling. I don't know how everybody's doing.
That's good.
And this is one tiny way that we can practice this life together as a community. This is one tiny way that we can do the politics of the church by listening to one another in a new way. So I'm going to keep going. So we're citizens of God's kingdom. We are asking the question, how are we doing life together, right? It's been said that the church doesn't actually have a politics. The church is a politic. We are the vision of what life together looks like. We're a reflection of God's kingdom on earth. We are the vision for how God's people can do life together. Our platform is God's justice. Our campaign trail follows wherever God is working in the world. We don't actually make our own campaign trail, I would argue.
That's good.
So one big question for the church right now, and this is why we're looking at these cards, is what are our hearts full of? I think it's really important to take a moment and name what's happening inside. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And so what are the things that are in our heart right now? If you've gotten a card and you feel comfortable, I would love for you just to read that out. We're not naming any names, obviously. These are anonymous. But if you have a card, I would love for you just to read that out. Go ahead and stand up and read that out for us, and know that it's anonymous, but that is in the heart of somebody in this community. Grief and confusion.
Grief, anger over the election. Shock, disappointment, and heaviness.
Vision. Surprise, dismay, curiosity, comfort, concern, defending.
Woe and weeping, bitterness, sexual sin, bondage, exhaustion.
Peace and meditation.
Frustration, nervousness, restlessness, Christ.
Brokenness, uncertainty.
Abstinence,
Anger and sorrow.
Love of Jesus.
Sadness, frustration, anger, hurt, pain, and disappointment.
Concern.
Shock, fear for the disenfranchised, sorrow, anger at the violence, and hatred.
Anxiety, sadness because of the hatred being shown, somewhat worried about people of color, how they will be treated because of this new hatred. Hope.
Anger, fear, distrust, sorrow.
Anger, love, people around me, dread, hope, and joy, also anxiety for the unknown.
Excitement, grace, love, and joy. Expectation and hope.
Anger, pain, mistrust, gentrification.
Warrior spirit, fire, passion for action, waging peace, triage, unification, love, hope, power, readiness, Holy Spirit fire.
That was a lot.
There's two majors.
Sadness, but hope and reasons.
Reflection, patience, hope, change. Not that we had no that.
Love, family, friends, life, and God.
So these are the words that come directly from the people in this room. These are the words, the emotions, what's living in our hearts of people sitting right by you. In our tiny expression of God's kingdom and our tiny expression of the church, we are all over the place. And I think it's really important to know that about ourselves. For some, there's pain in our hearts. For some, the ability to reconcile and give grace and forgive, as we did with communion, the ability to do that might be far off right now. For some of us, we're seeing our neighbor's pain, and we're allowing it to meet and affect us deeply. For some of us, allowing others' pain to meet and affect us and cause us pain may be a new thing. I have a very distinct memory of the first time I really fully allowed another person's pain to meet me and affect me. It had almost happened before, maybe happened intellectually or abstractly, through hearing stories, but I'd never allowed that pain to really meet and affect me deeply. So I woke up one morning while I was working at a camp in the mountains several years ago, when I was 20 or 21. Woke up one morning to hear that one of our young staff, a high schooler from Orange Cove, her name was Rocio, she had to leave the camp because her grandfather was ill and might be in his last days. But the reason that she had to leave was because her mother wanted to go visit her grandfather and tell him goodbye. Well, Rocio actually wasn't going with her mother. Rocio's mother was headed to Tijuana, and Rocio was headed to Orange Cove, hoping to catch her mom before she left to go see the grandfather, because she didn't know if she would be able to see her mom again, if her mom would actually be able to cross the border back into California and come back to her teenage daughter. And there's a lot going on in that story. For me, hearing that pain, not all the logic behind it, hearing that pain, it was just a devastating reason. Pain felt by 3 generations of people for 2 very different reasons. And they were leaving this safety and this comfort of this camp in the mountains. This camp, we're living in this world that felt so full of joy and full of wonder and full of safety. The kids were having a really powerful time. My staff was discipling children and growing themselves as young people. And I felt in a way like we were kept safe from the realities of the outside world. But Rocio's reality just shocked me. The reason I know this was different and that I let her pain touch me that I was allowing other person's pain to really get to me was because I had to respond, but I didn't really know how. What I ended up doing is I drank a cup of bitter coffee. I made it that morning without looking for a way to make it better or sweeter or more palatable, because I knew that I needed to sit in Rocio's pain and her bitterness. And it may sound silly, but it was me, and it was a way to lament. To sit in her bitterness and her family's story that wasn't able to be made any sweeter in this moment. My young self didn't know how to handle the news and handle the pain, and physically I needed to lament, and that was the only way I could figure out how to do it. And now, I'm so thankful for the communion that we just participated in, and the words that you just heard from the people in your community, your church, because it's one way, one powerful and physical way of standing with one another in our pain. Standing with one another who are hurting, standing with one another who are despairing, standing with one another who are angry, standing with one another who may not fully understand, and standing with one another who we may even disagree with. And as we stand together, we drank the juice and we broke bread together. The questions that arise for me are, how are we going to do life together?
Yes.
Like right now, in this time, in this present moment, how are we going to do our life together? What are our hearts going to be full of? You've heard what's in our hearts right now. I don't think it has to stay that way. I think being in community can change some of those things. And then third, how are we going to be a good tree that produces good fruit?
Yes.
Some of you may be wondering, is the church actually a good tree? It's okay if you're wondering that. There are some things that I'm not going to say tonight. I'm not going to say that God is on the throne, and I'm going to say that, and that our political realities around us don't matter. I'm not going to say that. Because God was on the throne during the Trail of Tears. God was on the throne during the transatlantic slave trade. God was on the throne during civil wars in Central America. God was on the throne during the reign of Boko Haram and the Cambodian genocide and the Syrian refugee crisis. God has always been on the throne, but that doesn't give us an excuse to stop working for the throne's justice. For the throne's justice. I'm not going to say that all we need to do tonight is look past our differences and pursue unity as we sweep under the rug the painful divides between us. I'm not going to say that our hope lies in the world after death, and all we need to do right now is wait it out and pray for our afterlife to be better. I'm not going to say that I don't see color, that we're one human race, and that we should ignore the realities of our current hostile and volatile racial climate for a superficial unity grown from the lie of color. I'm not going to say that some of us need to get over it. And I'm also not going to say that some of us are willfully and intentionally causing our brothers and sisters.
Yes.
I'm not going to say any of those things.
Yes.
But what I will say, which is hard, what I will say, because I fully believe it to be true, is that the church is a good tree.
Yes.
The church is a good tree, and we have to be.
Yes.
Who else is going to do it?
Right.
There's no other institution, no other community that has been chosen by God to do God's work of restoration and justice and shalom on this earth. It's nobody else, it's us. We're the good tree. We're the ones to produce good fruit. If we're not doing it, then we have a problem. And we probably need to talk to God about it. We probably need to talk to somebody in a position who can change some things, or we probably need to do something about it ourselves. If we are not producing good fruit as God's church, we've got to figure that out.
Yes. Yes.
And some of us have been hurt by the bad fruit of others' bad trees.
Yes.
Some of us have been blessed by the fruit of others' good trees. The church historically has been on both sides of the question. It's not always produced the fruit that God would have us produce. It's produced distorted and spoiled and sour fruit. that has deviated from its source and its purpose. But I believe we can do it. That's why I'm here. That's why I keep showing up. If we're not doing it, we have to take a close look at ourselves and ask why not. I fully believe this because our God is the one who planted us. And a refugee baby from Palestine, born to an unwed mother, was executed by his state and saved the world. And this God is trustworthy. This is a God of restoration and justice and shalom. In Isaiah 42, we get a glimpse of the kind of God we serve, what kind of God is manifest and made very clear in that person of Jesus, that baby from Palestine. Isaiah 42 says, "A bruised reed he will not break, and a faintly burning wick he will not quench. He will faithfully bring forth justice. He will not grow faint or be discouraged till he has established justice in the earth, and the islands wait for his law." Another version says, "He won't brush aside the bruised and the hurt, and he won't disregard the small and insignificant, but he'll steadily and firmly set things right. He won't tire out and quit. He won't be stopped until he's finished his work to set things right on earth. Far-flung islands wait expectantly for his teaching." Dr. King said that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And that's God. The arc of God is bending towards justice. And this is a God who is not contained by the systems and the powers and principalities of this world and the laws and the books and the appointment of Supreme Court justices and legislation that passes or doesn't pass. This is a God whose side we are on, whose team we are on, whose lead we are following as we seek to be the church and be a good tree in this time. Isaiah continues to say, "Behold, the former things have come to pass, and the new things I now declare. Before they spring forth, I tell you of them." God has told us what the kingdom looks like. God has told us what his mission is. He says, "I'm announcing the new salvation work. But before it bursts on the scene, I'm telling you all about it." The good news is we actually know what the kingdom looks like. We know what restoration and justice and shalom can look like. And it's our job as the good tree to do it. The other good news is that God is the one doing this justice work. God is the one bringing the new things. He is the one we are following and pursuing and praising as we work. We are the good tree because we have to. We are a healing community, healing its community. And we will flourish because we are who God has asked to do the work. He has commissioned us and he has charged us to do the work. In order to be this good tree, we have to know where one another is hurting. You have to know what that card says in front of you. In order to be a good tree and to bear good fruit, we have to know one another. In order to fulfill the vision of communion, to be a reconciled and unified body in the face of an empire that would honestly rather see us ripped apart. We have to allow others' pain to meet us and affect us and touch us deeply. Isaiah continues to say, "Sing to the Lord a new song." And that's very exciting to me, because I don't actually know what song we're singing, but we're going to do it. So the question is, what are we going to sing? That's what we get to figure out together. That's the work we get to do. And honestly, some of us may be feeling too weak to sing a new song. That's fine. Look to your community to help you learn the words. Some of us may be feeling a disconnect, not knowing where to go next. That's fine. Ask your neighbors to listen to God for you. Some of us may be feeling like the same song that's worked for us in the past is going to work again. And we don't know why we need a new song. That's fine. Let somebody else's pain meet you and teach you. Many folks in our nation, and in Fresno, and in Lowell, have already given up on the church. Or maybe their faith in the church is teetering on the edge. Your faith may be teetering on the edge. If you're struggling to believe that the church really is the good tree, if you can't trust the American church, then trust on-ramps and stay here to work. If you can only trust one person right now, find that one person and stick with them to do the work. If you can only trust the voice of God that you hear inside you right now, listen to it and stay listening so you can do the work. For those looking in from the outside, what is going to come out of the mouth of the church right now? What fruit are we going to show the world? And a question for us is, are we staying connected to the one who is nourishing us? Are we staying connected to the one who planted and rooted and sprouted and is making us fruitful and is making us flourish for the world that is watching us? I want to let you know also that I haven't always believed in the church. I believe in the work of God. I believed in the person of Jesus for a long time, but not so much the community of God's people. It took me longer. Some of you may be in that same boat. I saw the hypocrisy of church. I saw the shortcomings. I saw the empty answers and the damage. Maybe you know what I mean. And it took me getting a fuller picture of what God is doing in the world to actually decide to stay committed to the church. And now I'm a huge advocate for church, and I surprise myself sometimes. But I stayed. I decided to stay when I was ready to leave because of my community. And it took new perspectives. It took seeing God at work in friends and in mentors, and seeing God at work in places other than my own context, to really believe that God was doing big things, and to believe that I actually wanted to be part of that, and believe that God was working within me. And that's, I'm off script, but I think that's really important, that, that if you feel like it's hard to see God at work in your own context, you gotta meet somebody else. That's the only thing that kept me in the church, really, like truly. So, I fully believe the church is capable of pursuing and pressing into God's mission at this time. Pastor Phil said this last week, or this week earlier, Honor's mission has not changed. We are still the healing community, healing its community. It's what we do. It's who we are. That's the fruit that we're wanting to produce. And so one of the questions that I have today, if you're feeling like you are in a place where you are ready to hear somebody else's pain, or you're ready to pay attention to your own pain, who are you burdened to stand with? And what neighbor are you burdened to love? Who are you burdened to heal right now? And it's by our fruit that others will recognize us and be healed and be stood with and be loved. So it's out of the abundance of the heart that the mouth speaks. And I think right now we really need some abundance in us. This is not a time for us to have scarcity inside. This is not a time for us to have scarcity in our community. I think God is at work, and God is ready to give us some abundance and let us go a little deeper and let us understand our mission a little clearer. We have access to this abundance. God has given us the authority to do His work. God's really been dealing with me a lot lately on this concept of scarcity and abundance. I don't really know what it means yet, but I know it's important, so I'm trying to pay attention to it. So, like I said, some of us may be tempted to leave the church right now, but my challenge today is to put your faith in the church, in the body of Christ, and in the people that you see around you tonight. We are this good tree. We are. God is trustworthy, and God is not going to fail us. There was a time when I didn't believe it, but I honestly have found no better tree. I've looked. There's no better tree. It's us. So the question for me is, what new song are we going to sing?